Hi, welcome to Today Matters. My name is Scotty James, and I'm one of the pastors here at Skyline Church. Today's devotional has us in the book of Daniel, chapter 6, verses 7 to 9. But before we read that, I'll give you some context. So you have a man named Daniel, and Daniel loves God. He's a righteous man and walks in God's ways, but his co-workers are not very righteous. In fact, they don't love him, and they want to kill him. And so they devised this plan to kind of put him under, and this is where we'll pick up in the story. Again, Daniel chapter 6, verses 7 to 9. It says, the royal administrators, the prefects, advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days, except to you, your majesty, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue this decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. So King Darius put the decree in writing. And so I want you to understand this would have been a very devastating thing. Daniel's faith pretty much was outlawed. If he prayed to anyone but the king in the next 30 days, he was going to be thrown alive in the lion's den. But I want you to look at his response. And it's important to pay attention to this because what you turn to in tough times really reveals what your faith is in. So let's see what Daniel turned to. Verse 10. It says, now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. And so Daniel's knee-jerk reaction when faced with an insurmountable situation, it wasn't to go to some sort of strategy. It wasn't to go to people. It wasn't to go to some sort of negative thought process. His knee-jerk reaction was to turn to God and pray. Daniel trusted that God had the power and authority to alter his situation, and his faith ultimately was in God. And so I want to encourage you to ask yourself that question. When you're faced with a tough challenge or an insurmountable situation, what do you turn to? Do you turn to substances? Do you turn to people? Do you turn to gossip? I want to encourage you, just as Daniel did, when you're faced with a difficult time, turn to God. Turn to God in prayer. Turn to the one who holds all things together and who can actually do something about your situation. Because remember, what you turn to in tough times really reveals what your faith is really in.